this is about security. It's Prince Harry with a different legal situation.
Yeah, and this is a long-running legal battle between Prince Harry and the Home Office. In February 2020, after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had left the United Kingdom and gone to Canada and then California, it was decided that he was no longer entitled to automatic police protection. He's arguing against that. Last summer, he was in court for it as well. This battle was going on. He was told he couldn't pay for his police protection, which he'd offered to, but he was given the right to go to this judicial review over the procedure, the way in which the decision has been made. It's a 3-day hearing. Much of it is taking place behind closed doors because of the nature of talking about security. But at the end of it, Prince Harry wants a review and his security reinstated. It's argued that he should still be entitled to it. The Home Office said he shouldn't because he's no longer a working royal and he's left the UK.
Joshua Rosenberg, behind closed doors, so we'll never quite get to know what's going on. But can you explain how he's trying to bring about some kind of change on the basis of procedural irregularity or having been treated differently? What's he saying?
This court can't decide what level of security he has. That's not how judicial review works. What he is challenging is the way in which the decision was taken, and he's saying it was taken unfairly. The body that took the decision didn't take account of what it should have taken into account. It didn't give him a chance to address the concerns and so on. This is a body which comes under the Home Secretary, but it's a separate organisation known as RAVEC. Now that used to stand for something completely different. It now stands for Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures. And this is a group that it looks at members of the royal family, public figures, decides what level of security. And what was said in court today, because the hearing opened in public and has gone into closed session afterwards, is that although his security was downgraded when he ceased to be a working member of the royal family, he does get security on what's called a bespoke basis. In other words, it's tailored to his needs. Exactly what that level of security is, of course, we're not told.
And what about the kind of, nitty-gritty of the not taken in the right way, it wasn't given proper consideration, or it was done on the hoof, or nobody was paying attention, or they were reading a magazine at the time, or what does he mean by not conducted in the proper way? The decision wasn't reached correctly.
There are certain rules which govern all decision makers. And as I say, the courts draw this distinction between the way the decision is taken, which they will look into, and the decision itself, which they say is not for them. How could they say? And so he's got to try to find some flaw in the argument, some way in which the committee didn't refer it to a group that knew more about it than this committee did. Specialist officers who might look at it might not have taken account the fact that although the risk to him might be lower now that he is no longer a working royal, what might be the significance of an attack on him would be huge because he is, after all, the king's son.
Yes.
And he's saying, well, they didn't take this into account, based on what he knows, which is obviously difficult for him to say. Now, there's one big problem that he's facing, and that is for judicial review, you've got to act quickly. You've got to bring a claim as soon as possible, and certainly within 3 months. And he didn't. Now, he says, well, I brought it as soon as I realised that I would be at risk, as soon as I was ready to come to the UK and I saw that I didn't have this security. But the Home Office, the Home Secretary representing this committee, is saying, well, you should have moved quickly. You knew the decision had been taken. You've left it too late.
And Sarah, are we under any sort of impression that the royal family, that the King or that the Prince of Wales has any influence over RAFEC and what it decides to do, that they may have said, well, we don't think that he needs this kind of security even in the United Kingdom?
Well, part of Prince Harry's case leading up to this was about the makeup of RAVEC, this executive committee, and he says that he wasn't informed in advance that the late Queen's private secretary, Sir Edward Young, who he wrote rather unflatteringly about in Spare as the Bee, was on the committee, also the master of the household of the then Prince of Wales, now King Charles, and he had argued that that was unfair, that he wasn't able to make accurate representations to them. But Joshua's point about what they're looking into and what we've heard today is about the impact that any particular attack might have on Prince Harry. And his lawyer arguing that although he's not a working member of the royal family, he is a member of the royal family. He was born into this. He didn't have any choice in it. And they need to look at the wider impact on the state should there be an attack on Prince Harry or members of his family. And of course, we know that he's argued it's not safe for him to bring his family to the UK without that level of protection.
And Joshua Rosenberg, should it be found that he has a point and that he is correct and that something was irregular in the way in which this decision was arrived at, as they cannot, or they say it's not within their aegis to change the decision that's been made, what would happen next?
The court would make a declaration that Ravek acted unlawfully, not criminally, but unlawfully. And Ravek would know perfectly well that what it would have to do is think again. Now, it could think again and reach the same conclusion, probably wouldn't. So he wants Ravek to think again, and obviously he wants him to increase his protection.
And Sarah, he doesn't come to the UK very often, does he? You think this is kind of fairly notional. How many times has he been here? For the coronation, he was there for less than a day, wasn't he, in and out?
Yeah, he was. And on that occasion, it's a good example, Vanessa, because he was afforded protection then. He was sort of part of the bigger protection. And we saw when he left for Heathrow Airport afterwards, he did have police escorts taking him. So there are instances where he does have that police protection. But when he comes to the United Kingdom, he has to apply 28 days in advance to this committee. Then that is reviewed and any security arrangements are then put in place. So he can't make a decision on the hoof to come and expect security.
Thank you very much indeed, both.